Hello, I am Ruby Falconer, and this is a Shamanic Egyptian Astrological Update for the week of October 12th, 2020. The intensity continues. We are this week going to be experiencing a transit of the Sun in Libra to the Great Shift planets. And this process began yesterday on the 11th with the Sun moving through a square to Jupiter. It will continue with Tuesday. On the 13th, the Sun is going to oppose Mars. And then on Thursday, the 15th, the Sun will square Pluto. And then finally on the 18th, on Sunday, the Sun will square Saturn. So it's going to hit all three of the Great Shift planets, already hit Jupiter, still in relationship to it, and will move through an opposition to Mars. Also, the night of next week, the 18th, Sunday, that night, we're going to have Mars moving into a square to Jupiter. And that's the completion of its transit to the Great Shift planets. Mars is currently retrograde, if you'll remember, in its own sign, in Aries. And that's the completion of its retrograde relationship to the Great Shift planets. And that began back on the 29th. When Saturn changed direction, it turned direct in a square to Mars, and that was within the window of the full moon, which happened 2 days later. So if you think back to the 29th, that's when the debate happened between Donald Trump and Joe Biden, and everything that's taken place since then, you really get a picture of the type of hugely transformative energy that is represented by the Great Shift alignment, which is the conjunction of Jupiter, Pluto, and Saturn. In the Egyptian pantheon, this is Horus, Osiris, and Sobek. And the incredible intensity, the opportunities for transformation and change, the dismantling of the structure of society as we've known it. You really get a picture of what it is. And it is, of course, the energy that has dominated the entire year. And it's really expressing itself in its fullness during this time. And this week is no exception, with the Sun moving into relationship to all three of the Great Shift planets, and also moving through an opposition to Mars. And the Sun in the Egyptian pantheon is Amun-Ra. And Amun-Ra is a dual god. He is Ra, which is the sun during the day when we can see it, and Amun, which is the sun at night when we can't see it. And we have in this symbolism an understanding of the cyclical nature of life. For the Egyptians, what they believed is that every morning at dawn, Ra got on his golden chariot and he began his journey through the sky. And then at dusk, he got off of his chariot and got onto a bark, and he went through the underworld as a moon. And he was challenged during that time when he went through the underworld. There were demons that wanted to gobble him up, that wanted to kill him. And he did this every day, every 24 hours. This was his journey. And there's in traditional astrology, the sun represents our ego identity. And the thing about our ego is, people, in spiritual traditions have sometimes said that they want to get rid of the ego, and other spiritual traditions have said, well, we want to get rid of the false ego. And the way I view it is the ego is an important part of our personality. It is the part of us that wants to stay alive, that wants to keep us in form, keep our soul in form, so we can do the work that we came here to do. The issue is that the ego in its original expression is formed early in childhood, and it's formed in relationship to the conditions that we experience at that time. And so it makes sense. It is the source of codependency, it's the source of addiction, it's the source of behavioral issues, and we're meant to outgrow our ego, not just once, but many times in our lifetimes. We're meant to go through an ego death. And in order to go through an ego death, we have to go into our own personal underworld. We have to be like Amun-Ra. We have to be willing to go down and meet our demons. in order to come back again. And this kind of going into the underworld and then going into the above world, we see this in many of the myths, not only in ancient Egypt but around the world, of having an underworld journey. It's there an Ananna's journey into the underworld. In the Egyptian myth, Anubis, he brings the newly deceased souls down into the underworld, and then he takes them, if they pass muster, he takes them into the duat and the above world. So he's continually going into the underworld and going above. In Greek and Roman myth, we have Persephone, who is taken into the underworld as a victimized maiden. But in her maturity, she becomes the queen of the underworld. And she's the one who knows how to go into the underworld and then come back up. And so we have this repeating myth throughout history and throughout time that we are designed to have dark nights of the soul, both individually and also collectively. It doesn't mean it's easy. It doesn't mean we like it. It doesn't mean we want to do it. These processes are challenging. For many of us, they inspire fear. They inspire reactions of one type or another. For many of us, when we're afraid, we become angry. So this is all part of this process that we are going through collectively during this time. And we can expect more of this intense, challenging, chaotic energy, which has been present throughout this year, but it certainly has stepped up to a new level since Saturn changed direction, turned direct on the 29th in a challenging relationship to Mars, the warrior king that sat in the Egyptian pantheon, who is retrograde and therefore experiencing a lot of frustration. He cannot get done the things that he wants to get done in the way he wants to get them done, but he's certainly, putting up a lot of protest and making a lot of noise. So that's just the way it is right now. And so I want to acknowledge that we all have to take care of ourselves during this time. And I want to also acknowledge that this week brings a new moon in Libra. And so what that means, that's on, the new moon in Libra is on Friday, October 16th. It'll be at Libra 23 degrees. And that's right there, Pluto's at Capricorn 22, coming on to 23. We've got Jupiter coming up to that point. Saturn's not that far past it. What it means is that in the new moon chart, we're going to have the sun, the source of our solar power, our ego identity, Amun-Ra, in this challenging relationship to all three of the great shift planets and in an opposition to Mars. So the new moon is going to reflect back to us another version of these very intense energies. So I want to acknowledge that, and if you're feeling the intensity, you're not alone, and you're not crazy either. Things are very intense and very chaotic right now. And this too shall pass. Everything moves on with time. It's going to take a little while for this. So in some ways, this period from the end of September through the middle of October is the most intense part of this period. And we're really not going to see much of a shift until Mars turns direct, which will be on November 13th. So that's about another month. So we're going to be living with this intensity for a while. I do want to acknowledge kind of a different area of discussion, a different topic, and that is Mercury. Mercury in the Egyptian pantheon is Thoth. And Mercury is right now stationary. It's changing direction on Tuesday the 13th, and it will be in Scorpio. It will be on the 11th degree of Scorpio when it changes direction, and it will be in a relationship to transiting Uranus, who's Wajat, in an opposition to Uranus. It'll be within 3 degrees. So as we've been going through this craziness, this intensity with the great shift planets, we've also had Mercury slowing to station. It's slowing down right now as we speak and becoming stationary, and then it'll be changing direction. It'll turn retrograde, and it's in relationship and opposition to Uranus. Now Mercury is in Scorpio, and the thing about Mercury in Scorpio, Mercury is thought processes, it's communication, It's how we think, how we articulate ideas, how we remember. In that opposition to Uranus, we can expect unexpected things to be happening in that realm of communication and in those processes. And also in our thinking, there's revelations taking place of aha moments and, putting things together in new ways. We can also expect, because it is in the sign Scorpio, and Scorpio is very comfortable with underworld energy. It's ruled, I'm speaking traditional astrology here, is ruled by Pluto, who is the lord of the underworld. We can expect energy from the underworld to be surfacing into consciousness, both on an individual level and also on a collective level. And the way this is going to happen is secrets will be revealed. I've been saying this for a while. When I say it, it's kind of funny to me, because it really depends on your point of view as to what kinds of secrets you think are going to be revealed. Some people think it'll be secrets about what's really going on with COVID-19 and what's going on with the government. Other people think it'll be more secrets about what's going on with Trump and with the people who support him. And so it's interesting, because it very much depends on your point of view. And so that brings me to another aspect of Mercury, Thoth, that I want to discuss, is it's not just about communication, how we think, how we articulate ideas. It's about our reality construct. And what I mean by the words of reality construct is it's what we perceive reality to be. And it's extremely important for us all to be thinking about this right now, because my personal opinion is one of the biggest hallmarks of the particular time that we live in is a breakdown in consensus reality. We never had 100% consensus about what reality is or what reality looks like, but we've been much more in harmony around it than we are now, in the way that we've been for a while. And the very deep divisions that we see in this world, and I'm an American, so specifically in the United States, have a lot to do with this breakdown in consensus reality. And a lot of this has to do with Donald Trump, and it's a way in which I see him as an instrument of a bigger story, in that him pointing out fake news, some of which has turned out to be fake, not all of it, but some of it certainly, and also questioning what truth is, has put us in this position, which is challenging in some ways. It's chaotic, but it's also very interesting, because when we don't all share that same consensus reality, we don't share that same point of view, then we have to question, well, what is reality? What is real? What is truth? And those are good questions to ask. Those are good things to be thinking about, even though it can be unnerving at times and somewhat challenging. So we're going to be in a little bit here going on a journey with Thoth, but I want to just speak a little bit more about what it means to have Mercury in Scorpio, or the way we would say it in Shamanic Egyptian Astrology, Thoth, the Sacred Scribe, is emanating through Bast. Bast is the cat goddess in ancient Egypt, and she awakens our holy longing. The temples of Bast in ancient Egypt were places, the temples of the sacred sexual priestesses who practiced the tantric arts. These were the places where soldiers went when they came home, or soldiers at that time were frequently husbands and fathers and farmers and tradespeople who came home from battle. They would go to the temple in order to engage in sexual union with the sacred sexual priestesses and allow themselves to release the fear and the anger and the terror and the fury that they felt in battle, and the shame, everything they've seen, everything they experienced, so they wouldn't take it home to their wives and their families. So this was an honored role in the community, the sacred sexual priestess, who of course that's changed through time. As we well know, the sacred sexual priestess became in Christianity the whore. And so, we can follow that with the evolution of Magdalene. So, this energy is about sexuality. Scorpio rules sex. And what is under this very complicated desire for what I sometimes call the urge to merge, to lose that sense of separateness and experience union with another individual, is ultimately that desire to experience union with the divine. And so Bast represents our holy longing. It is her job, in a sense, to awaken within us our holy longing. And that holy longing is really about moving beyond a place where we are now to something else, moving up to a higher octave, in a sense, to allow ourselves to let go. Scorpio rules death, it rules the underworld, it rules transformation, to let go of that which we have allowed ourselves to be bogged down in a sense. It no longer serves us, and to allow that holy longing to pull us to something new. So we are going to talk more about Bast and Scorpio and the holy longing and all of that in the future. But our journey today is specifically going to be with Thoth, who is emanating right now. He's awakening in us that holy longing. And I'd like to address the idea of who Thoth is. He's a very ancient Egyptian neter. He is, in a sense, a creator god. He's not a creator god in a traditional sense. He's not a creator god like Ptah or Khnum, who created, heaven and earth and the beings who live on earth respectively. But what Thoth created as the Sacred Scribe is language, and he created the hieroglyphs, so the ability to communicate in that way, writing as well as language, and he also created time. And so, this is a complicated piece to sort of meditate upon. But ultimately, what he created by creating those three things was he created third-dimensional reality. Because third-dimensional reality is defined by language, how we speak, how the linear way we have to process information, and also by time. The fact that we have to move from one place to another in a certain way within this dimension. It's an illusion. We all know that. We know, Einstein showed us that with the theory of relativity. If we get off of planet Earth, time doesn't exist as we experience it here. So it's an illusion, but it's a very real illusion while we're in this reality. So much so, when you watch science fiction movies, or if you talk about, or read science fiction books, they keep Earth time, even though they're out in space, which doesn't apply any longer. But they do that anyway, because they need to have some kind of reference in order to have a construct for reality. That ultimately is what Mercury is about, is our construct of reality. And one of the greatest things that we're going through at this time is a breakdown in our collective construct of reality, which is creating on a personal level a challenge to each of us in an individual way. It's creating a challenge to our own reality construct, what we believe reality to be. Now, this can be very frightening. It can be very unnerving. It can be physically upsetting. People who, when we go through these types of processes of transformation and change, we can have physical symptoms. We can feel nausea. We can feel sick. We can get ill because we are being turned upside down. Nothing's making sense anymore when we let go of or have a challenge to our established reality construct. And that's what this entire year is all about, is challenging that construct. Now, this is necessary and is ultimately very good, because we're going to begin the process very soon of creating a new reality construct. Many of us are already in that process, but it's going to take some time in order for us to get to a point where we have some kind of consensus reality again, which means inevitably we're going to be dealing with some chaos for a while, and so we have to, for me, my perspective is I have to keep doing my personal work within this larger picture of chaos. I have to keep letting go of aspects of my reality construct that no longer serve me, and opening up and exploring new avenues around that in order to move into a new version of myself. Because in the Aquarian age, each of us will create that age by who we become. That's very important. In the Piscean age, we look to others. We look to gurus. We look to priests. We look to kings and queens to tell us what to think and tell us what reality is, and to be an intermediary between us and the divine. That's no longer true. We all have direct access now, which increases the chaos when we all have direct access. It's like, whose truth is true? Whose experience is real? They're all real. We all have a sacred point of view that comes from Grandmother Twyla Nitsch, Wolf Clan grandmother of the Seneca Wolf tribe, passed to me through my one-time mentor, my colleague, my friend, my teacher, Linda Starwolf. So she was a student of Grandmother Twyla, and that's a big piece that she took away from Grandmother Twyla, is we all have a sacred point of view. We're all like standing in a medicine wheel, and we all hold a point. And it's all equally true, and we need to hold that place simultaneously while we also see the medicine wheel. We can't forget that it's all there. Polarization happens when we forget. So, that's another topic. I've touched on that a little bit before in previous talks, and I'm sure I'll talk about it again in the future because it's valuable and meaningful to me. But right now, what I would like to do is offer to everyone a journey with Thoth, the Sacred Scribe. And let's not forget that he is emanating through Bast, the sacred sexual priestess, she who awakens in us our holy longing, our desire to die to that which no longer serves us, and to awaken to something new that wants to come in. That's who he is emanating through. And he's all about using this emanation to create a new reality construct. So let's go on a journey with Thoth and see what he has to offer today. So let's take a nice deep breath. And another. Letting go of distractions, allowing yourself to come completely present. Tuning into your body. Feeling whatever you're sitting on, whatever you're lying upon, supporting your body, the places where your body touches, the surfaces that are supporting you. And being aware of the earth beneath the floor, or under you, depending on where you are. The earth, Gaia, supports all of us. She loves us unconditionally, no matter what we do. She will not let us go. So breathe that in, that connection to earth. And I want you to imagine that you are in a temple. You have come to the temple of Thoth. And your version of the temple is your version. It's not wrong. Somebody else's isn't right. Whatever shows up for you when I say those words, the temple of Thoth. That's correct. That's right. It's your version. So I want you to take a few seconds to look around and examine the place that you have come to. And you become aware that you have been joined by Thoth, the Sacred Scribe. He can show up to you as a human, as a bird. To the ancient Egyptians, he often took the form of an ibis, which is a water bird with a long bill. The Egyptians were fond of hybrids. So they often portrayed Thoth as a man with the head of an ibis. He may show up in some other way. Again, whatever way he shows up for you is correct. So just go with it. But he's come to welcome you to his temple. And if you are willing, he would like to give you a download. A download that will assist with the rearranging, the ongoing rearranging of your personal reality construct. Knowing, as he knows, that as each of our reality constructs changes, it will change our collective consensus reality. So he's here to assist in this process of transformation and change, this global process, planetary process that we all have a role in and we are all being affected by. So he invites you into his temple and he shows you to a place where you can sit and he can stand behind you. And if you are willing, he takes one hand and he places it on your forehead, on your third eye. He's putting his palm on your third eye. And he takes the other hand and he places it on your chest, on your heart chakra. And he invites you to take a couple of nice deep breaths. And to imagine that you are breathing in the energy from his palms. One on your forehead at your third eye, and one at your heart chakra on your chest. And he's going to take you on a journey and through a process that will contribute to the personal activation you're going through during this time. The rearranging, reconstructing, rebuilding of your personal reality construct. Nice deep breath. And be quiet for a couple of minutes here as you go on a journey with Thoth, the Sacred Scribe. Take a nice deep breath. And as you do, Thoth presses a bit harder on both these points, your third eye and your heart, in order to anchor this transmission into your energetic and physical body. And he releases you now and comes back around to face you and offers you his hands to help you stand up. And you see the kindness and love in his eyes. Give thanks to this beautiful being. And you become aware now that you have been joined by Isis. She is wrapping you in her rainbow wings. She who is with us through every process of transformation and change. She's been with us this entire year. She's been with you this entire year, holding you, helping you move through all that you must move through. And as she wraps her wings around you, she is sealing this download, this transmission into you on all levels. So take a minute now to lean back into her arms, resting against her, feeling her love and her healing energy. Taking a nice deep breath, giving thanks to both these beautiful beings, Thoth and Isis, and coming slowly back into the room, allowing all of the pieces of this new reality to settle in one by one. Thank you. We will talk again.